Tim, in your plan to take back our government, we talked about the advertising dollars that are campaign funds that our House of Representatives, all of our politicians go out and they do fundraising. And with every $10,000, $5,000 donation, so to speak, there's a string attached to it. It may be under the table, but it's still attached to it. Sure. And so what we're talking about now is citizens of every walk of life having the opportunity to answer questions, not necessarily affiliated with a party, because you have people in your organization already that all over the states. I mean, we're just now finding out more and more about it in this area here, and that's why we're doing this today, so you can learn more about Go. But you're all over the United States.
Right. We launched about 18 months ago when the book was published. We've been on talk radio in over 50 cities around the country. We've had over 125,000 people have already been to the website. There's a really interesting story, if I could tell you. A guy from Greece, a Go supporter, sent me an email just this last week. Said, "Hey Tim, I had the most interesting thing happen. I'm working on an oil rig off the coast of Greece, and a guy and I were talking, and he said, I got this thing you've got to look into. It's called Go in Greece." Since we've launched, we've had these visitors from over 142 countries that have found our website. So you can see how this thing is spreading. We're trying to get 500,000 members. That's a tiny number.
Yeah.
Right? There's 660,000 people in each of the 435 districts. And we're looking for one person to step forward that will represent that district. We don't need politicians. We don't need all of this money that they have to take to go get elected. And we don't need folks up there for the career. We need them to go represent us.
Now, do you have a list of people who are excluded from being members of Go?
Yes. So when I started the system, I started with my heartfelt belief, no political correctness whatsoever, on what I thought was needed to affect change. And I suggested we exclude three groups of people: lawyers, members of political families, and people with lots of money. Now, the system has continued
to
evolve.
Lots of money, boy, that took me, that kept me safe right there.
Yeah. Well, if you look, there's over 95% of the people in office today fit into one of those three categories. That's not a representative government. I'm not saying that those are bad groups of people, but I said, let's try to get, the teachers and the policemen and the doctors and folks like that to go to Washington and represent us. We don't need you to quit your job. We don't need you to go raise $1 million. We can do all of this with the power of the internet today. And that's where I come in as a systems guy. We can do this just over Saturday. So I initially excluded three groups of people, but also once I started the system, I created a question committee, and the members on that continue to evolve. I don't even have a vote. The questions that we ask continue to evolve. The question committee, just in the last 2 weeks, has made the decision we're not going to exclude lawyers, and we're not going to exclude those with wealth. I don't think the website reflects those changes just yet, but they're coming, and I think that's a good example of how the system continues to evolve based on the input of the members.
But I know you've already conducted some of these focus groups, and so you know how this works out in the end. And my guess is that the career politicians that participate and the people that have enormous amounts of wealth and can buy their position, as well as lawyers, don't they come to the top? Don't people see them for what they are when you're sitting in a one-on-one situation with the common sense people? Because that's what we are. It's just common sense, and they don't operate under that premise.
I think they'll be excluded pretty quickly, but we'll let each pool of 10 decide. So imagine on a Saturday morning, if you sit down with 9 of your peers, and you can actually do this if you want to try this out, but you sit down and you're going to talk to each of those 9 other people, and you're going to look at the way they answer that questionnaire, and in your group of 10, that you're going to decide who should represent us. And as you go through 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 rounds of this, the quality of the person that rises to the top of the system is superb. We've ran extensive focus groups where we've tested this process, and I have yet to see any pool of 10 where either of the 2 candidates that emerged would not be a phenomenal person to go to Washington to represent us.
See how incredible this is? What a great system. Check out the website, www.gooh.com. It's phenomenal. All right, we'll be back in just a minute with more with Tim Cox and Revolution. We're going to take it back, whether they like it or not.